Can I start just first by acknowledging the First Nations people in the land in which we meet today and recognise their elders past and present. And I want to thank them and reinforce the integral role that First Nations and Torres Strait Islander peoples play in sport and in connecting us all to country. Thank you to Tim Clark for inviting me here today. It's a fantastic opportunity to be able to engage with you all. Obviously, we've got a lot on our plate as we contemplate what's coming up over the. We can't keep saying decade, can we? Because the clock is running down ever faster. But certainly, as a proud Queenslander, I absolutely understand and appreciate the important role that Q Sport play, and it's great to see everybody here today being involved in the conference again. For those that aren't aware, although I make the assumption that probably everybody in the room is, but the Australian Sports Commission, which I am now fortunate enough to be leading, is a federal government agency that funds sport right through from community participation up to our elite levels, and is the owner and responsible for the AIS and its programs. It's been 15 odd months now since I took over the CEO role, and this opportunity that Brisbane 32 has presented has definitely been one of the main driving forces for me, being willing to step away from my corporate universe and join into this sporting environment that we all love so much, and having the opportunity to contribute has been fantastic. But recognising that, you know, from the grassroots to the pinnacle of elite competition, the AEC does work with the sports sector, our other government partners, businesses and the wider community to champion the role that sport can play for absolutely all Australians. And as Nat mentioned, you know, we are very clear in our vision that sport has a place for everyone and delivers results that make Australia proud. We all know here that the benefits of sport are wide-ranging, whether you're thinking about the physical, the mental or the social benefits that come with being involved. And really, the opportunity that this next decade presents to us is a chance to step in, take advantage of the stage that we're going to be put on to really change from a sustainability perspective the way sport in Australia is delivered more broadly. And as I mentioned, we are well and truly into it. I've kind of got to stop saying a decade, because it's 9 years, and 8 if you're worried about qualifying, so the clock is ticking very, very fast. But when you contemplate all of the events that are coming up with the Women's FIFA World Cup, we've got Commonwealth Games in Victoria in 26, the Rugby World Cups for both men and women. My old sport of swimming, was great to see the Junior Pan Packs are coming to Australia in a couple of years. Oh, next year actually, I think it is. You know, there's World Cups, World Championships across multiple sports, because everybody with 32 on the horizon wants to be in Australia and have the opportunity to compete. And the thing that we all recognise, of course, is that when we get to 32, what we want to see is the best Olympic Games that's ever been delivered. And that comes with infrastructure, that comes with an enormous army of volunteers and organisers and officials that need to be able to make that happen. But the one thing that those of us in sport can never let go of and never stop talking about is that actually, when it's all said and done, the only thing that the Games will be judged upon will be our athletes' performances. If we're not on the field of play and we're not leading with the green and gold, it won't be recognised as the Games that it could have been. And so making sure that everybody's got a chance to be on that journey with us, that it isn't just about Southeast Queensland. I am a Queenslander, so I can say this gently. It is Australia's Games, and of course how we engage the entirety of the Australian community and get everybody on this journey is going to be integral to ensuring that not only is the game successful, but we are able to present our very best team and perform at the highest level that we knew. There's an enormous amount of work, of course, though, that this will take. And from the Sports Commission's perspective, you know, we're really proud to actually be engaging the system and leading in some of the work that's being done. Many of you might have seen recently the Australia High Performance 2032 Plus strategy was launched in December last year. We had all of the NIN partners, games partners, the NSOD system coming together to actually sign on to the idea of the strategy, to the commitment and the pledge to actually work together as a unified system of sport in this country to be able to deliver and develop on what we need to deliver in 2032 plus. 32 is not a finished point. It should be a launching pad. And last week we had all of, or a large group of our industry participants in that coming together to continue to work on the streams of work that come from that. And I always have to reinforce whenever I have this conversation, this is not the Sports Commission strategy. This is not the AIS's strategy. This is Australia's high performance sport systems strategy. And we're all committed to involved. And that industry-wide approach is very much about making sure that we harness our collective strengths, we bring in and engage all of the talent that we have across our system and utilise those resources as absolutely best we can to make sure that we deliver for all of our sports. The thing that came out of the 2032 plus strategy, which I was very pleased to see, but it was quite a journey for all of us to go on, was that I think we've all seen over the last few decades, there's been a hesitancy from an administrative perspective to talk about winning or wanting to commit to winning or commit to targets around winning. And very early on, as we were going through the HP 2032 plus strategy work, the athletes who were involved in that right from the get-go were very clear, we are here to try to win. There is no point us dedicating our lives to the effort and the work that we do just to be involved. We are actually committed to winning. But it can't just be about winning, it's how we win. It's the impact that effort has. It's the way that we actually represent on the stage, but also how we as individuals, after it's all said and done, and the system that supports us is able to build and deliver balance and well-being in high-performance sports. So this concept of winning well sits at the forefront of the HP 2032 plus strategy, which we also, of course, know is so incredibly important to engaging and ensuring that all Australians can see the aspiration to win and can be inspired by what they see, knowing that how we win is a feature of what we could be proud of and will be proud of, the way that our athletes perform. And another very strong focus that came out of the workshops and the work that we did is understanding our connection to country, our connection to First Nations people, and an understanding of the powerful place that we have in the world, acknowledging that Australia as a country has this opportunity to engage and to be grateful and proud of the 65,000 plus years of history and custodianship that we have. And as Nat mentioned, we were very proud just yesterday to officially launch a piece of artwork that the ASC commissioned. We went to market on this, and it became very obvious very quickly that we had this wonderful opportunity to engage Olympic boxer Brad Hoare, who was an AIS scholarship holder as well, to work with us to deliver this piece. And what he was able to put together is really quite extraordinary. When we started the conversation, I think there was a list of, it'd be really good if you could incorporate, a tome of paper later, and he somehow managed to bring that all together into this artwork, as well as engaging First Nations people throughout the country and the Torres Strait to really have it be representative of sport in Australia. And there'll be more to do with that, but it's such an important part of our identity. And one of the things that I'm really clear on when we are talking about it, especially within the organisation, but as a leadership point, this is not something that we've done that we're just going to roll out when it happens to be NAIDOC week or Reconciliation week. This is actually a core part of who we are. And for those who have the opportunity to come to the AIS site over the coming months, you'll see this become a feature of the look and feel of our entire site. Because one of the great feedback pieces that we have received and continue to receive from athletes who engage in our system without actually seeing that connection to country, without actually being able to be in an environment where that thread is there, they don't feel safe, they don't feel included, and they're not able to actually engage appropriately within the environment. And I think for all of us, it's an important piece of feedback to be aware of as we contemplate what is inclusion, what is connection, and how do we make sure that we provide that. The second very big piece of work that we're doing from an industry standpoint, and more recently, is the launch of our leadership of the National Sport Participation Strategy. Again, this is not our strategy, this is a co-design piece of work that we're aiming to bring together across the industry to transform the way participation is connected, delivered and supported for our country. We all know the participation system of sport in this country is enormously complex. There's an enormous amount of touch points, opportunities, providers, community groups, businesses, governments, etc., who are involved. And part of the complexity that we have within that system also creates a lot of barriers to make it simple and easy for people to be involved. So understanding that, being able to bring everybody into the dialogue to try to find ways to navigate this is a core part of this work that's underway, and we're very much looking forward to seeing how that goes. We've been facilitating national roadshows across the country to bring together local community groups and sporting groups to be a part of that dialogue. And we'll be having one here in Brisbane on the 1st of June, which will be important. And I know that Lindsay is from our team is speaking with you all later. I know she'll cover off on the detail of some of that work that's going on. One of the things that I also wanted to cover off before I conclude is the work that we've been doing to support and volunteer the volunteer workforce in sport. You know, we know that over 3 million Australians are engaged regularly with volunteering to deliver sport. And we also know, oddly, most of them don't see it as volunteering, they're just helping out. And when you talk to Australians about where do you volunteer, they talk about charity, they talk about their school, but they often don't at the forefront put forward, I volunteer at my kids' sporting club, I volunteer at the local community club, and it's an enormous and incredible workforce. But we also know that it's challenged, that it's not an easy thing. We're not seeing the return to volunteerism post-COVID across the country as we might have liked. And with all of these events that we've got coming up across this green and gold decade, we are estimating that the system's going to need at a minimum 130,000 more volunteers than we have, just to enable us to be able to deliver what we need to deliver. And that puts an enormous amount of strain and reduction in capacity for all of those kids out there who want to be involved in sport if we're not able to find ways to bring those volunteers in and get them involved. And one of the things that we've been very actively involved in is working through the National Sport Volunteer Coalition with Volunteering Australia and other major volunteer groups to really lead a strategic piece of work about how we get more Australians involved in sport volunteering. And you know, I'm incredibly proud. I made the assumption that sport was very late to the game and not actually particularly leading in the strategic engagement on policy and the way to actually bring more volunteers in. But it turns out, while we were late to the game, we're absolutely at the forefront through this work that's being done. And again, that's something that Dr. Lindsay Rees, who I mentioned, will be talking to you a little bit more about later in the day. So just in closing in this part of the conversation, I just wanted to reinforce that, you know, there are an enormous amount of opportunities ahead of us as we think about this green and gold decade and what it means for absolutely all Australians. Whether you be one of the 15 million Aussie kids that take part in the Sporting Schools programs, which is a free introductory program that is often actually the first touch point children have to being involved in sport. Whether you're one of the female coaches who are part of our Gen 32 coaching program, which focuses on improving the diversity of our high performance coaching system by providing trainee apprenticeships for NSOs and those Gen 32 coaches. Whether you're one of the local para champions that who is now able to chase their dream through that grants program support, or you're one of the community sport officials learning the modernised approach that is provided through our coaching and officiating conferences and programs online, which also will be part of the big conference on the Gold Coast next week. There absolutely is a place for everyone in sport, and this Green and Gold Decade is the perfect opportunity for sport to take charge, be centre stage, and really drive home some sustainable opportunities for all of us. Thank you very much.
So Kieren, the utopic, what would you, if you really do think about 2060, that far out, what would you like, what would be the ideal win for community sport and club sport and grassroots sport? What would you like to see and look back and say that's what we contributed to?
So look, I think, I should start by saying I'm not going to talk about infrastructure, and not because it isn't important. It's incredibly important, and the opportunity that a Games provides really should be about changing a city. And we know that means road infrastructure, public transport, housing, and all of those opportunities. And that absolutely has to be a legacy opportunity that's provided. But we also need that sporting infrastructure, because at the end of the day, community sport is only ever going to be able to deliver what it can deliver if there's a place for people to play, if there's a place for people to be involved. So ensuring that whatever's built has life, and that life is sustainable for the community that will receive it. It's always one of the great learns that we have, and we've seen from every Games that's ever been put in place. There's this great aspiration that comes from the federal bodies and the organising committee about what needs to be built and what needs to be delivered for the Games, and then the day after the Games is over, a local council or a state environment owns it and has to keep it going and maintain it and make it livable for that community, which is forever responsible for it. So all of those connections are incredibly important, and I don't want to diminish them, because they are core to our opportunity. But when I look back on, or if I look at our sport environment that we have now, I really think if we've actually taken this opportunity and we've created legacy, what we have got to have in 2060 is a sports system that is an inviting, safe and inclusive place for everybody, that there is an opportunity. It doesn't matter what socioeconomic background you come from, what cultural background you come from, which part of the country you live in. If you want to be physically active and play sport, you have that opportunity to do that. And you do that because the Australians who wear the green and gold, you're inspired by them, you're connected to them, and you see that what they achieve and what they deliver for themselves and for their country is something that is worthwhile and worth the effort and the time and the commitment. But that's all built on community and how that community of sport operates. And I think at the moment, unfortunately, if we're truly honest with ourselves, community sport, organised sport is declining and has been for a very long time. We like to muddle the numbers, and we can use them as best we like to argue our point. But when you look at the population growth in this country and the membership base of people who are actually involved regularly, they're not growing. The chart's not moving in the same direction. And there's something in that we need to look at, so that 32 is a springboard on to a far more sustainable system. And I think you and I would both agree. We watched the Sydney Games, and it was amazing what it did for Sydney. Now, I know it's taken a while for Homebush to really become a precinct, but there was a lot of road infrastructure and things that did change the way Sydney as a city operated. However, within 2.5 years of Sydney finishing, the national and state sporting organisations that enable sport in Australia to run were all as broke as they were the decade beforehand, and all struggling to deliver programs and to just cope with the influx of kids who wanted to be involved after the inspiration that 2000 provided for them. And that's our risk, and that's our opportunity. If after 32, every child in this country who wants to be involved in sport has a good, safe, well-managed, inviting, inclusive place to be, and they become advocates for physical activity and sport for the rest of their lives, then we'll have absolutely changed the dynamic of the universe that we live in today, and that's our opportunity.
Yeah, that would be pretty special. We both sit here in the Queensland Academy of Sport, all of us today, and we were scholarship holders for a very long time. Probably one of the longest standing ones. That was hard to get rid of me. Still is, I'm back. So the high performance part of that, you talked about, unless we're successful on the field, in the pool, on the sand, in July 2032, August, we won't be known as a successful game. So now we go to high performance, and the inspiration that athletes like yourself provide, and provided me, still playing in the same era. How do we keep making sure that our next green and gold runway, the decade, the FIFA World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, the Commonwealth Games, those high-performing athletes keep inspiring that next generation? What's the secret to that?
Look, like everything, there's complexity in it, right? Like I think, obviously, first and foremost, all of those athletes have to be engaged in an environment that gives them the support they need to deliver their best, right? Like I think one of the things that was true when we were athletes, but is even more true today, is that if you want to be the very best in the world at sport, it's not a part-time gig that you can do as a side hustle. It is a full life commitment that requires dedication well beyond just the few hours in the morning and the night, and you live a normal life in between. And so being able to support our athletes to ensure that they've got the financial support that they need. I mean, I know I'm talking to a room of the converted to an extent, but it's always worth pointing out that, when I talk about sport, I actually have to remember more to keep referring to Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth sport when we talk about sport, because the average Australian thinks every athlete that plays sport is rich, because they see the pro codes where they are, and they are very well paid, and they're given a great opportunity. I know there's some gender split there, but by and large, they are, when you compare it to Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth athletes who are all earning well below minimum wage, often earning well below even Centrelink payments that are available to those people who are desperately in need of support. And so that system we need to be able to get the system to recognise and understand that we can't expect our athletes to be winning on the world stage if they can't put food on the table, while also making sure our athletes understand that the enormous amount of support that they get from places like the QAS and the AIS and these other systems also means that there's a whole bunch of things about their sporting life that they don't have to pay for that's provided. So that's kind of the first bit. And I think the next bit that I really have been surprised about, fascinated by, interested in, I'll say fascinated by, I think about that era of sport that led up to kind of 2000 and maybe hung on a little bit before then. And like I'm talking way back even into the 50s and 60s. There was this environment where the athletes who were involved in representing Australia at an Olympic, Paralympic or Commonwealth Games were household names. Like they were personalities that the community knew and connected to and understood, and they had buy-in to the journey that they were on. And there's been something in the last 20 years which has disconnected that a little bit. Like everyone loves the games and wants to watch it, and they will hear about names at that moment in time. But very few of the Olympic or Paralympic or Commonwealth athletes that turn up at a games are known beforehand. And even the ones that are known beforehand, people aren't necessarily as vested in them as they had historically been. And there's something in that about the way that we, our athletes tell their story, the way that our athletes kind of present themselves as part of the fabric of Australia, the fabric of the community, the fabric of who we are, because we all believe that sport's an integral part of the culture of Australia. And I think that, you stop the average Aussie in the street and they'll be able to tell you intimate details of their favourite footy star that, frankly, who cares, but they know. But could they name 5 Olympians who are going to go to Paris and represent us? Could they say anything about their backgrounds or where they are or how their training's going or what their selection pathway is going to be? And the answer is no. And so there's something in that piece of the puzzle as well that I'm not quite sure what the answer is yet, but there's got to be a broader engagement and responsibility that we take so that we can pitch that story and we can get the community to better understand. Because I think you would have all seen the response to the infrastructure, the money that's coming to Queensland for the Games, the Hobart Stadium response. Now, we in the bubble of sport are yay, yay, yay. And that's 1% of the community of Australia. The other 99% of the community of Australia are going, really? How much money? Are you kidding? Those rich guys over there are getting all of that when we can't pay for our electricity bills, we need social housing. And so we've seen the dialogue. We understand that dialogue's out there. And one of the core elements to that dialogue, which has been the case for decades and decades and decades, but sits firm still very much in Australians' minds, is why are we investing millions of dollars to support these rich athletes, and are they going to give their money back after they win the gold medal? I have never once heard anybody in this country or read it anywhere say, it's so wonderful and amazing that Chris Hemsworth and Cate Blanchett are winning Oscars and are making millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on the world stage as actors. Geez, I hope they give the money back that they got when they were funded through all of the government arts programs that enabled them to perform and that subsidised and underwrote that movie that they just made $1 billion from. Well, they're paying that back, aren't they? Now, of course they're not, and no one ever asked the question, but there's something culturally in this country where our athletes have been put in this position where there is just a deeply misheld perception about the Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth athletes and what their opportunity is, what it takes to get there, and the struggle that they have in the environment that we have that we're trying to deliver to. And I think that, our athletes play a key role in being able to do that. They can't whinge and moan that they don't get enough money because no one will believe them, but they need to be able to engage the community in a way that the community has a vested interest in seeing them on their journey and succeed. And then when you have that vested interest in their journey, you're going to learn more about what the journey is and the obstacles that are in place and what that takes. And being able to break some of that down and shift that perception, I think, is incredibly important for the high-performance sports system to lean into more and figure out how we support that and do that. And it's partly helping our athletes, educating them and engaging them more in the reality of the universe. It blows my mind every time an athlete complains to me about how rich their NSO is. It's like, has their NSO showed you their finances? Because I tell you, they're not. Like it's all a busted ass trying to save paper clips. But no one's talking, like no one's transparent and engaging them with it. I don't get it. It's one of those things. Anyway, I won't go down that path. We got to have a far better dialogue with everybody to be a lot more transparent and open and realistic with not only the people in our sport and helping them with that dialogue and lifting them up with it, but also getting the community more engaged. Because for reasons beyond me, culturally, sport just seems to want to gloss over everything and pretend like we're nothing but superstars, and the truth is a lot more complex than that.
And ask for the money back. And very comprehensive answer and complex layers of thinking in there. If you need Ella and I to go and see Elbow and Annika with you to ask about the finances, because I'm sure Ella can attest to how rich you are, Ella. But Cindy Hook is here. We'll be hearing from Cindy soon. Might be a great idea, Cindy, about Chris Hemsworth sponsoring the Games. Well, I'm happy to put his image.
No, sponsoring some athletes who will be at the Games.
Well, yes, that's good too,
Thank
Kieren.
you.
Absolutely, the athletes first. I would have been happy to wear Chris Hemsworth's picture on my bikini. That wouldn't have been a problem. Anyone know Chris? Anyone? He lives at Byron, apparently. Nikki, we're coming after you. I'll go with you. Happy to play golf with you and Chris. We'll ask for money for our athletes and to sponsor the Games. Kieren, thank you so much. We will now throw to the floor for a couple of quick questions. Anybody got any questions of Kieren? We've got one over here. Great, Al. Do you want the mic, Tim, first, for our Zoomers? Just so our Zoomers can hear. Come on, Tim. Faster than that, mate. That's marathon running.
Thanks, Tim.
Sprinting.
Testing? Yeah, it's working. Kieren, my name's Alison. I'm the CEO of Hockey Queensland. I'm also on the board of Q Sport. Very pleased to see Tim doing such a great job today. I didn't have to lift a finger. Well done. My question is in regards to your comment on we need to have, performing athletes for 2032. Because currently, when you speak with the national bodies around 2032, we know that that's happening, but we've got to get to Paris. And we've got to get the funding from Paris to then get to LA. And then after that, once we've got the funding secured for 32, then we'll deal with 32. Now, the athletes coming through to 32 are actually in our backyard in the state sporting system. So I'm curious to know, and that's where we're thinking as well, our juniors coming through at the moment. So with this new high performance strategy, has there been consideration around sort of separating the funding from the current Olympic cycles, because we need our national teams to be performing, but will we be seeing any funding coming down towards those athletes in our pathways so that we can better support them to be performing come 32?
So look, the work that's being done at the moment within the Horizon, it's called Horizon 1 within the HP 2032 Plus strategy, is to actually answer those questions and come up with business cases. Because fundamentally, one of the big problems that sport has today, and I say this, it's my responsibility to move it, right? Because ultimately, that question gets asked because everybody thinks that the answer to everything in sport is government, we need more money. Government, government, government. Like everyone's got their hand out. And everyone's got their hand out, and all they keep saying to me is, well, because we're sport. So, and please stop telling me about the health benefits of sport, because Australia is the fattest and unhealthiest it's ever been, and we've been telling everyone for decades sport's going to solve the health crisis. We are not solving the health crisis, and we won't solve the health crisis. And even if we could solve the health crisis in reality, no government's going to fund that today for something that might possibly, potentially, we hope kind of maybe happen in 20 or 30 years' time. Today is kind of the thing, right? So being able to build the business cases around the workforce that's created, the technology and innovation that's delivered, the industry that sits behind sport and the impact that that has is where that dialogue needs to come. And our NSOs are so overwhelmed with just trying to deliver to today that they can't step into that space of being that sort of strategic dialogue to say, well, what do we actually need? Which is why this strategy work's going on. Because honestly, at the moment, I've not had a single NSO that can tell me what they need other than more money. Okay, but to do what? How is more money going to make a difference? Where is it going to be deployed? What are the things that are being built systemically that create that solid and absolutely unbreakable base of organisational capability that means that no matter what the top-up is or the fancy program that comes along, these businesses are absolutely sustainable and ongoing and will be able to continue to perform and deliver. And where is the role that moves down into the system or up into the system? Because one of the things that we honestly have to be a lot more pointy about is recognising that one of the reasons most of our NSOs are broke is because Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth sports are bottom-up funded. Actually, all the money's in the States. All the resources is in the States, but the way we behave today and the way our organised sporting system is structured, it doesn't get shared, it doesn't get moved, it doesn't actually allow for a really good productive lens to sort of say, well, where is the best place for that money to be delivered and how should it be delivered so that we really understand how this finite resource that we've got is being best deployed. Because the honest answer is that there is no government in this country that's ever going to give us enough. We'll always want more. We'll always want more, we'll always want more. And so I have to, and I fight every single day to get more, but I also am not going to sit back when I talk to my industry. I don't talk to government this way, but when I talk to my industry to say, yeah, we'll get you more, But that more's never going to be enough if you just keep saying to me, well, because we want to win. We need to. I get all that, but what is actually the work that we can do as a system that shows here's a solid business case. Here's an investment model that proves that if we put this money here, it will deliver this. These jobs, this flow-on effect to industry, and create that GDP impact that we know happens. I mean, people throw around numbers like for every dollar that's invested in sport, $7 returned. How? Where? Show me the connection so that when we go to government and we say, here's why you have no choice but to invest in this. We're not asking for money. You've got no choice. You have to invest in this because this is what it delivers and this is the impact it's going to make. We don't know that. We can't comprehensively provide that yet, and we have to do that. And so, I implore everybody to work together to be in that conversation. Every single time a state organisation and a national organisation are at war with each other because they disagree on strategy, you are absolutely diminishing and undermining our effect and our impact and our ability to be successful. Destroying it, blowing it up deluxe. And we are all responsible for it. There's no finger pointing in here. This is just an acknowledgement that culturally within Australian sport, the federated system is built more on adversarial basis than a collaborative, and we depend on each other so much that we absolutely have to work together at all times, and we have to continue to move towards that. Some sports do it really well, most don't. So that when we go to government, the answer is clear, because there's also not just federal government, there's state government, there's local council. The states in Australia pump exponentially more money into sport than the feds do. You know, the amount of money that the Queensland government's putting into programs around providing access to participation in clubs, travel, infrastructure, sporting equipment is exponentially larger than what the federal government puts into operational programs and needs. Where is that money going? What is its impact, and how does that connect to the money that a lot more needs to come from a federal level to link that up so that we're getting the very best outcomes all the way through. And this strategy work is part of that. The participation strategy work has to be the next big part of that, because I can't go to the federal government and demand money just because we're sport. There's got to be a business case that absolutely makes it undeniable for them to be able to provide that support. And the other thing that I'd add to that is a really deep connected understanding that the current funding cycles that exist within sport is actually one of the fundamental problems that we have. I mean, part of the reason why we all behave the way that we do is because we don't know in 2 years if we've got any money anymore. Now, I've never come across any government in the history in my lifetime, that actually stops funding sport. I mean, we're always going to keep getting money, but because it's terminating measures or because it runs on the parliamentary budget cycle, we're all on fixed contracts and we all don't know how much further it's going to go, and that fundamentally has to change. That is why we're unsustainable. That is why, as businesses we struggle so much, and so that is also a really strong talking point. We know 32 is coming, and we know that for every sport, the kids who are in your system today will be the 32 athletes. It's not. The current Australian team is not going to be, or very few will likely be there. So how do we build that sustainability, and how do we actually build, a funding guarantee that says, hey, sports, for the next 10 years, you've got this much. There'll be other top-ups and terminating measures and things that happen because it's government. It's always going to be, they need announceables. And that's fine, but there's a core part that just needs to be absolutely reinforced and put in place. And at the moment, again, I haven't seen any document, defensible argument that we can present and take that would have government say, for this industry, because the only industry in the country that doesn't operate on the terminating measure cycle is defence. So how do we go and put ourselves beside defence as the industry in this country which needs long-term, decade-long commitments to funding that absolutely can't be diminished.
Well, that's a great challenge.
We need a good story, and it's my job, right? So I'm doing it, but I need everybody's help because I'm one guy, and all of you speak to all of the influencers and the people that are making decisions around this, and the 100 voices in this room can and will drown me out and make me completely ineffective if we're actually not talking about and working on the same things in the same direction. We don't have to agree, we don't have to all sit and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but if the stuff that the system is saying is completely the opposite of what I'm trying to say, we will continue to lose as we have been. But I need you to help me work out and provide the answer, because I don't think I have the answer. I'm not God. I don't know the answer to everything, and I absolutely need help to make sure that we come up with the right arguments. So please, let's work very hard together on this, because if it doesn't change, and because we've obviously the May budget federally is already gone, state budgets are rolling through. I reckon at a critical level we've got 12 months, and if sport in this country operationally is not appropriately resourced or has guarantee within the resources within 12 months, then good luck to Cindy and her team that are building a games. I know it's going to look pretty and the infrastructure will be fantastic, but we won't be winning the medals we hope we will, and you won't be the best games ever because of it.
12 months, it's a good challenge for us all to swim, row, dive in the same direction. So please put your hands together, the amazing Kieren Perkins